Hello, welcome back to the Bridge Podcast. My name is Sammy Peters. Today I'm here with Richard Szudy, and I found you by looking at the Arab Community Center of Toronto, of which you are the vice president, and I immediately thought, yeah, that's someone I'd like to speak to. So if you want to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you very much. As you said, Richard Szudy is my name. It's the last 6 years I have been on the board of the Arab Community Center. So
Yes.
I'm not involved operationally, but in terms of overall direction and oversight of the activities of the Arab Community Center. A beautiful thing to be involved with. I have to tell you, I've gotten a lot more from that than I have given it, I'm sure.
Sure, yeah, I can imagine. And you started it 6 years ago.
6 years ago, when shortly after I stopped working, as it were, officially.
Okay.
If you like, I can tell you why I joined there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, I'm the only, I'm sort of the token white bread on the board, and I'm not Arab.
Right.
And yet that's what this is called. The name is the Arab Community Center of Toronto. So the reason I got involved is that the last 25 years or so I've spent doing international development work,
Right.
environmental programming
Yes.
with grassroots groups, predominantly in Egypt, a little bit in Jordan, and a little bit in Afghanistan. During that time, the limited success that I may have had in any of these projects that I worked on, I have to attribute to a lot of help that came to me unbidden. People were so kind.
Yeah.
I ran into an awful lot of folks that ended up helping me out. And when you're not familiar with the language, with the culture, the customs and all, that kind of help is invaluable.
Yeah, it changes everything. I can
Absolutely.
imagine. If you're there in like a land that you don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So when my work ended, I felt the need to somehow give back.
Sure.
And I was introduced to the Arab Community Center of Toronto and agreed to join the board. And 6 years later, I have to end it at the AGM in September will be the end, because bylaws say board members can't be there for more than 6 years. So they're 2-year terms, renewable twice, and after 6 years, you have to take a year out to ensure that there is
It
fresh
stays
blood.
fresh?
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough.
So and I think we've spoken briefly already. I've already found another place to become a board member of, and that is the Newcomer's Kitchen. So
Yes.
so I'll take that up because, as I said, I have to end it
You'll have
with
the time.
Arab Community Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that because I think that's all very interesting. That's a very interesting project from what I've heard in our past conversation. But I want to take it back a little bit.
Sure.
And so you were born in Poland.
In Poland.
Right?
Yep.
Where exactly?
A very small village, tiny, a few hundred home size. So a very, very small village in the extreme southeast of the country. So not that far from the Ukrainian border to the east, or not that far from the Slovakian border to the south. The foothills of the Carpathian Mountains area.
Okay.
So, I was born there, and my family made the move to Canada when on my 7th birthday, as a matter of fact, is when we landed.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Well, that's what my dad said. He said, for your birthday today, you get a new country. So, we came here initially to Kingston, Ontario, because his parents were living there.
Okay.
His dad had been there for 30 years, he was raised essentially by his mom in Poland. And ultimately, after the war, when the war ended, his mother made the move to join her husband in Kingston.
Right.
And a bunch of years later, my father, with his wife and 4 kids, came over to join them
I guess I would soften the blow a little bit going from, village in Poland to Kingston instead of village in Poland to Toronto.
Oh, well, yeah, but you have to appreciate that in that village, there were no roads that cars could navigate. So for the first 7 years of my life, Sammy, I had not seen cars.
Really?
Wasn't aware of them. There was no electricity. We used kerosene lamps. There was a well out front for water and an outhouse, outside of the house as the washroom.
So that's still an enormous difference.
Huge.
Then,
so
okay.
when we landed, it was not just a language shock and a culture shock. It was a technology shock. It was like going from the 19th to the 20th century in one day.
Yeah. A lot of, like luxuries.
It was really, as a matter of fact, it's a little story, and you can cut these things out. I tend to go on. We were picked up, we landed at Mirabel Airport in Montreal at the time. And my grandfather and a friend with a big car showed up to pick us all up. So we were driving back. It was already evening. We were driving back from Montreal to Kingston. And I was just mesmerized by all of the lights along the road.
The highways.
And after a bit, I couldn't hold back. I had to ask, how is it possible to have all of these lights? And when asked, what do I mean? I said, well, I could imagine if you start lighting them when it's getting dark, you wouldn't be finished by morning and you have to put them all out again. Yeah. And the driver laughed so hard, it almost went off the road, apparently. I don't remember that detail, but it's a story my family has told often. But that's the dramatic difference that we had. There was a street light in our village at a T intersection, but it was a kerosene lamp that somebody lit when it got dark and had to blow it out eventually. So that's all I knew. So imagine at age 7, it's like you're born.
Yeah, it's a new world.
Everything, absolutely everything is new with no preparation.
It's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine going.
It was awesome.
Yeah. You must have been living a dream at 7 years old.
Awesome. It really set up. I mean, everything was so unknown that it really set me on a path of learning that I am still on, because everything was strange. I had to first identify what this is. I actually remember this. My grandmother yelling at me for flipping switch, turning the light on and off. Awesome, amazing. Same with flushing a toilet. It was like you're wasting water. But it was just such a brand new concept. So the most basic things that if you grew up here, they wouldn't register because it's just part of the background. For me, everything was brand new. Absolutely everything. Not just language, but even those kinds of things. Stairs. My grandmother's house had stairs.
There were no stairs in Poland?
There were basically 2-room cabin-type homes. That's what it was. It was a rural,
so literally
very basic.
Everything was just...
Literally everything. And so my fascination with understanding things really was born there.
Right.
The arrival to Canada. The most fundamental thing that happened in my life.
Have you ever been able to go back?
I have. Not as often as I would have liked. But yes, I've been back a number of times.
Sorry, your parents are also from there? Okay.
All of other family members, though, stayed there. We were the only, little group. My parents came here to join his parents. Okay. Everybody else on both sides of the family was still back in that village.
And what's the village called?
It's called Checklin.
Checklin. Okay.
Tiny little place. And I was able to take my children there.
Oh, nice.
And so that they could see where your dad comes from. And we crossed over into Ukraine because my wife, although born in Canada, her parents are Ukrainian, just on the other side of the border.
Yep.
So, we kind of did this thing where wanted them to see where the parents came from, what the roots are.
Which is incredibly important.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
My mom is Algerian.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never been to Algeria in my life up until recently. And being able to go there for the first time, which was a year and a half ago, or something like that, 2 years ago. It's like, it explains so much, and it's weird because a lot of things feel familiar that you can't explain and that you've like seen before and stuff.
And
like
you
in
walk,
the
you
mannerisms,
turn the corner, and your mind
yeah.
says, "Aha!"
Yeah,
That's why.
It's very it's a very special thing to go back to, like the place where your parents are from.
Yeah.
And if you get the chance to do that with your parents, it's even more special. So, yeah. And okay, so sorry, I just went a bit off topic, but and then you moved to Kingston, and then you don't speak English. You can't speak English.
Awesome.
Still?
Well, I can tell you, there were unpleasantnesses.
Yeah.
There were. I was
imagine.
chased in the streets, called foreigner and stuff. Yeah. Not horrible, but it sticks in your mind when you're scared,
Of course, yeah.
And all. But we arrived in June. School starts in September. I knew a handful of words by then, but not many. No. And I remember distinctly the experience in school. It was like, on the Peanuts cartoons where when you have adults and teachers and it's wah, wah, wah,
Yeah.
kind of like that,
okay.
right? So the teacher talking weren't words that I could understand, so it was just noise. So what I would do is, and I remember this clearly to this day, and I always will, is I had to pay special attention to what she was doing on the board. And when it was time and others were doing the same, I would try to emulate what she did on the board. And then as she would come down, I would look at her face to see if she was
writing something.
Yeah,
you would, okay.
Exactly. So I would look to see if her face is happy or not, and the tone, whether it was sort of positive or not. And if it wasn't, I would then look to see, what did I do wrong? What's different?
Yeah.
And that was the initial experience. And there was absolutely no one else in class that spoke my language. So it was total immersion. And I'm actually impressed by how quickly one learns in that context, because you have no choice.
I was gonna say, like, if you're fully immersed and you don't speak the language, I think especially at that age, it teaches you a lot about like physical behavior and like just sort of things that people do that make you understand and not necessarily know what they're saying.
Exactly.
Or like their body language. I think
it becomes part of the communication of necessity.
Yeah, you rely on it for sure. Yeah. Did you find you got a lot of help from the school?
I don't recall that. I don't. I don't recall those kinds of specifics. I don't have bad memories of the school, so it's not that. Yeah, so it's not as if I felt that I was missing anything. The way my memory works, it was as it was. This we're talking 1957.
Yeah.
This is a long time.
1951?
50.
Okay, my dad's born in 51.
Yeah. So, in a few months I'll have finished my 75th year. My God, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah. I have that, but like with my 22nd birthday.
Puppy.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like it, but
I know.
And then, okay, so like what age did you start, being comfortable, or not that you weren't comfortable, but like start feeling like you were at home where you were in Kingston, and like you started having your circle and like
I think probably
your routine.
3 years later, because we were living with my grandparents.
Yep.
3 years later, we bought the house next door. So not very far.
No.
But at least
Just have a shoulder to lean on.
yeah, but at least it was our own space.
Yeah.
And by then, there were no issues with language. I really don't feel there were issues with language after even the first year.
By then, it was just,
Yeah,
you had it.
of necessity, you just had to be able to manage. The only thing that stuck was, and I'm sad about this, I went through those formative years not playing any team sports, no organized sports, because they were all new. Volleyball and football, soccer.
Yeah.
Soccer
Football.
was all that exactly. It should be called football, and it is everywhere else. Yeah, that was all I knew. So the American football, baseball, these things, totally alien.
Yeah.
And what I recall is my initial efforts at any of those brought a lot of laughter, embarrassed the hell out of me. That is one thing I remember from a young age. For the first 10 years, if not more, I would be very easily embarrassed. My face would turn as red as a tomato. You really feel it. In the young years, you really feel that kind of stuff. So the ridicule.
It has a lasting impact. Like if it happens to you once at that age, then
I
like,
just
it
withdrew,
sticks.
and the only things I did were things I could do by myself. I did gymnastics a lot and running. That was what I did growing up all the way through school, and did not engage in the team type sports. And in retrospect, I wish that I could have gotten over that embarrassment and just persevered, but I didn't. Yeah.
But it also, like, obviously team sports has it has an incredible amount of benefits, but I also think like being able to do a sport by yourself, I think in that sense you learn a lot about yourself at a young age.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You absolutely do. Yeah.
And then, so you stayed in Kingston up until?
Well, that was 6 years only, the first 6 years, and then moved to Toronto. Right. And the only reason is the factory that my father worked at relocated to Toronto, and anyone who wanted to keep their job had to follow. And we were dirt poor. We couldn't afford to be, easy peasy about work, so we made the move.
What was that like? Because if it's 6 years in, you must have been 13, 14?
Yeah. So it was exciting.
Had you been to Toronto before?
No.
Okay.
No. I tell you, one of the things, I haven't thought about this in a long time. Downtown was just awesome because Kingston is a very small city.
Yeah.
And the streetcars and just the mass of people and the noise and all that.
So I remember,
shortly after making the move with my parents, I somehow ended up around Yonge and Queen.
Okay.
In that area, the big department stores, Simpsons and Eaton's, were the thing there. And I remember stopping in the middle of a crosswalk at one of those streets. A whole mess of people were supposed to be going in this direction, myself included, and there were people coming towards us, right? And I just stopped because for the first time in my life, I see a black person coming towards me. I'd never seen one. Yeah. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Living to that many years and not having encountered a person of color.
At 14, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go up to them?
No, I was mesmerized.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God.
Yeah, well, I guess, you also like wouldn't have seen it online, obviously.
No.
There would have been no other way. Wow.
Nope. And
that's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't know any better, but
yeah.
That's it. Just all of a sudden,
Yeah. So the move to Toronto was really a mini repeat of the initial arrival in Canada. Yeah. Mini because it's mainly scale versus everything being new, So,
Oh.
but no, I like that. So
And what was Toronto like at the time?
we were in the East End. It was our area was fairly family oriented. I liked the schools. I ended up going to this private Catholic school, high school, Neil McNeil High School.
Okay.
So I was in grade 7. Yeah, we made the move after 6 years. So I did grade 7 in a public school. And then there was this, I don't even know how it happened, but grade 7s from all public school, Catholic schools were invited, boys were invited to sit exams. And on that basis, they windowed, we actually did about 3 of them, and they took 30 from around the city in the Catholic school system
Okay.
to go to a special. It's like instead of doing grade 8 in high school, you went to grade 9. I guess they were still calling it 8.
Yeah.
But it was a blend of high school and grade school.
Okay.
And
Right.
then in grade 9, it was. So we were sort of between grades all the time.
Okay.
Somehow I made it onto that, and I got into
What was that like based on? Like on
scores.
criteria? Okay.
Scores. That's the thing. Once
Yeah. Were you a good student?
I was a great student.
Okay.
I loved school. Sammy, for me, New Year's was never January 1st. I could never connect with that as a New Year. For me, New Year was September.
Yeah.
Was the start of the school year. New books, new clothes, a new opportunity to do better. I remember clearly every single year. This year, I'm going to take better notes. I'm going to study properly. I'm going to. All the New Year's resolutions were in September, and they related to the upcoming academic year rather than some artificial calendar year.
I was not that type of student. And so you came with your siblings.
Yes.
Are you the eldest,
second.
middle, second eldest?
I have a sister 2 years older, and then me, a sister 2 years younger, and a brother 4 years younger. So every 2 years there was one of us.
Okay. Did that? Yeah. I think also making like 2 moves of that, like from, Poland, Kingston to Toronto. I think being able to do that in a family, and like with your siblings, I think that makes a big difference because you.
Absolutely. My family continues, like the 4 of us, we continue to be incredibly tight. Just as we were starting, there was a call from my brother checking on
Nice.
me. We have a call every day, for example. And the reason for that is that we had these traumatic, if you will, experiences, and that generally pulls a unit together tighter, So, it wasn't easy, but having a small group of us made it easier. We relied on each other.
Yeah, and like you share what you're going through with like 4 other people that know exactly, like they're all going through the same thing. So.
Yeah, indeed.
So sorry, went on a bit of a sidetrack, but
I love them though.
so a very good student then.
I was. Yeah, go figure. Always, simply because I loved it. You see, it goes right back to the initial weeks of being here.
Just curious.
Fascination with why when you press this thing, a light goes on and off. So. From an early age, driven by necessity to begin with, I focused not only on what is this, but how does that work and why? Okay. So it was, I wasn't in a position of allowing anything to come to me simply at face value. That's how it was introduced, but intuitively, I always wanted to know, why is it like that? And ultimately,
The so what?
that evolved into the so what. Like, and so what does this mean? What's the implication?
Yeah.
What's the consequence? What's the significance?
Yeah.
And that just became part of me, and that's what fueled my ongoing interest in learning. So, I was good in school because I was passionate about learning. Nothing to do with the school, to be honest. I'm sure I had great teachers, and I did. Some of them stand out. And I had a lot of very average teachers, and probably some bad ones, because that happens in life, right?
Always.
So, for me, it was a real interest, almost a need to understand that drove my academic performance. And if just the way you are is giving you really good results, you love it, right?
Yeah. For sure.
So I was good in school, and I loved school.
Did you ever think about becoming a professor or a teacher?
Do you know, that's interesting. Initially, and this is to do with TV, Perry Mason. Loved that show. When I got to, I'm sure you haven't. That's way before your time. He was a lawyer.
Okay.
And we were allowed to watch, because we didn't have a TV for many years, and then you watch certain things. Anyway, I would watch that, so I thought, I want to be a lawyer. That didn't last too long, by the way. And after that, it was to be a priest.
Really?
Yeah, that was that comes
how did that come about?
from my roots, because in the village that I come from, this was very normal. Families, large families, generally speaking, a son in the family should go into the priesthood, and a daughter to become a nun.
Okay.
One of the girls. That was just normal.
Sure.
Poland has been a deeply Christian country, always. Well, since that started. So so that was just.
Was your household religious?
I wouldn't say particularly. I'd say just normal, but it was kind of just in the fabric. This expectation,
Sure.
Prayers were important. And we went to Catholic schools, so they reinforced that.
Sure.
For some years, I thought, after the idea of being a lawyer kind of fell off, the next thing was to be a priest. That didn't last long either, maybe 3 years, because by then I was at Neil McNeil, taught by a teaching order from Ireland, the Holy Ghost Fathers.
Okay.
Excellent. I loved it. I loved that whole experience. They were great teachers, to be honest. But I wanted to learn more about other religions. And we had some very, very good discussions in religion class. Blah, 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 blah. Excuse me. Let me have a tongue getting away from me.
Yeah. I've had a few. I've had a few of those as well.
And a lot of the sort of disconnects between church doctrine and what really happens started to come forth, and it just stuck in my craw. I felt I couldn't reconcile, a strict teaching that seemed so at odds with human nature and what's really going on, and sort of inherent hypocrisies. And I just lost my interest in going into a situation where you were supposed to follow orders rather than be able to
create or like
exactly. Yeah, so that didn't last. But as soon as I finished high school and went into university, then very clearly my focus was, this is what I'm going to do for life. I am going to be a professor at university. And I spent 6 fabulous years. I did a 4-year undergraduate at Trent in Peterborough, Trent University, an honors BSc, and then an MSc at Guelph. And I was a Master of Science at Guelph University. And I applied for graduate work and to do a PhD.
Yep.
And I remember sitting with my supervisor of studies at the end of the year, and he said, "Okay, I'm ready to write your recommendation letters." There were two universities that I had had interest in, and,
Yep.
and we were going to work through which one it would end up being, UBC or University of Calgary. They were the two I happened to have selected, and my supervisor said, "Richard, I'm happy to write this. I know you'll do a fine PhD, but lately, in the last few years, things in academia had been really, really tough." He was sessional. So he said every summer he's on red-eye flights going across the country looking for the next year's sessional position because there just were not enough vacancies. And these were times with the stories of PhDs driving cabs, washing dishes, the stories were all out there.
Yeah.
But the point was there were not many opportunities at that time. So what he said to me is...
So you were warned.
Well, he said, if you think you're going to be in the top 10% nationally, then you can have confidence that you'll get the teaching position you want or the research position you want, whichever way you want to go. If you're not going to be in the top 10%, chances are you'll be sharing my life. And he had told me what his life was, this hustling for...
Yeah.
And he said, so think about it. Think about, do you want to do this? And I did think about it. And I hadn't been thinking differently up until that moment. Within a few days of that conversation, I decided I'm going to go to work. And I can always come back in a couple of years if I want to, if I need to finish the PhD. And I did think I would, by the way.
That was the plan?
That I would go
take a
back,
couple years.
do the PhD so that I could be a prof at university. And I started to work for Ministry of Environment, and from there to other things.
Was that because it was an opportunity that was available, or was that out of interest? And
It's clearly interest. All my studies were environmental studies focused. That was what I was passionate about. All my undergrad and graduate research were environmental, land-based examinations of stormwater runoff and things like that, climate and the like. So I took that break believing in the moment that I would go back and do that. But the work interested me and life just went on, and I never felt the need to go back.
Okay.
So my life just went off on a different trajectory, and
unexpectedly.
And I was happy enough with that,
Do you now? Do you wish would have still maybe seen what it could have been like if you continued in academia?
Yeah. So I'm a little schizophrenic about this one because I'll tell you why. Because I really, whenever I go back, and I've been asked to come back and give lectures and things here and there. And every time that I've done that, I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. I really like the ambiance of university. I like the youth, the different energy levels than my own.
Yeah.
I find it recharging for me. I really do. So I like that. But then again, the path that I ended up taking exposed me to so many different slices of life and reality that I would not have happened if I'd stayed on campus. So there's an emotional side that says, I wish I had done that because I enjoy it so much. But intellectually speaking, I think I'm glad that it went differently because of what it exposed
Everything
me to.
Everything that led to it.
Yeah.
So what did lead to it?
Well, so
Just Ministry of the of Environment.
Yeah, that I think 5 years or so.
Okay.
Different positions, a lot of research things there.
Is that
I learned a lot.
okay?
I worked on a couple of important studies. At that time, I don't know if you're familiar, there's something called the Niagara Escarpment Zone. Along Niagara Escarpment is protected.
Okay.
It's a geologic feature that is incredibly important and rare.
Right.
So at the time, the ministry was looking to understand what sort of protecting rules and regulations were required.
Okay.
So,
Because what is it exactly? It's like
the Niagara Escarpment. It's the
Yeah.
it's the that cliff face that runs. Niagara Falls runs over the escarpment, for example.
All right.
That big drop. Well, this thing runs all the way up to Tobermory into Lake Superior.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how many hundreds of miles or kilometers it is, but it is a geologic feature that is rare. There are cedar trees there. It's a type of cedar. They're not very big trees that are over 1,000 years old, for example, just hanging on to the edge of the escarpment.
Yeah.
For example. Anyway, part of my work with the ministry was looking at the surface and groundwater resources in the area to see how sensitive they were to development in order to determine what sort of prohibitions would be appropriate in order to keep that physical feature not pristine but not degraded too dramatically. So that kind of work, I found that very rewarding. Because it's out of the box stuff. It's not routine.
Yeah.
So
You can actually contribute.
yeah, exactly. So that's a part of government. Then I went to that was a break. We went through employment contraction. Ministry was losing an awful lot of the jobs that they'd had for the previous 10 years or so. I lost mine. Ended up going out west, out to Calgary.
Okay.
And my daughter was born there.
Right.
And my wife was
why?
8 months pregnant at the time, and we made the move because I found a job with a small consulting company in Calgary. And I spent 3 years there. Again, very different now because now this is consulting. You're working for resource developers. And out there was a lot of mining, a lot of exploration-related stuff. So I was doing things like wildlife surveys, a lot of groundwater and surface water examinations to see the impact of a proposed development. So an awful lot of environmental impact assessment type of work.
Yeah.
Inventory type and assessment of impact type. I had a fabulous job once. I was hired by Village Lake Louise, a ski area there, who their main competition was Sunshine Ski Resort. And because of the orientation of the slopes, Sunshine started earlier and were able to stay open much later in the spring.
Okay.
Village Lake Louise was getting annoyed with how much business they were losing.
Yeah.
So I was hired to go into all of the back bowls.
I've never considered that. With
But, I would, on cross-country skis, I would ski the back bowls with a Mount Rose, I think it's called, snow sampling tube. And I was taking snowpack measurements all around to see how viable it would be to develop a snowmaking enterprise at Village Lake Louise. And the conclusion of that study was that it was indeed viable, and they went ahead ultimately and
they did
it. Yeah, Sammy, I'm telling you, there were days when I would be up there in some of these back bowls, no other soul for, for miles and miles and miles, and I couldn't believe somebody was paying me to be here to do what I was doing. I was doing what I love to do, and that was my work. So, So anyway, 3 years out there. And then then the famous crash in Alberta. This is when Pierre Trudeau,
Right.
Justin's dad, enacted the energy program that put controls on what was happening with Canadian gas and oil.
Okay.
And Alberta shut down. So, small company that I was working with on a Monday, we had projects booked to take us 12 months out, a full year. We were all secure. By Friday of the same week, zero. That's how dramatic, how quickly it went. Wow. Every company just shut everything down, up in arms. And to this day, Alberta hates the Liberals and the name Trudeau. You know, they were really, really up in arms at the control exerted by Ottawa for the first time on oil and gas activities in Canada.
It's kind of like, well, actually, no, it's not the same. I was going to compare it to something else, but it's not the same thing.
So anyway, ultimately,
and still, like,
came
sorry,
back.
still now, like in Alberta, they feel that resentment.
Oh yeah, that's why still Alberta is Tory all the time,
Right.
and there is an animosity against Ottawa, but it is more extreme against the Liberals in Ottawa. And if that Liberal happens to be called Trudeau, like Justin, forget about it. A non-starter. Right. Yeah.
I was going to compare it to kind of Thatcher and what she did to the miners in the north, but not entirely the same.
But a lot of similarity, I would think. A lot of similarity. So anyway, that brought me back to Ontario.
Okay.
Yeah. Then
Toronto.
Okay. Yeah, that was home. So we had to leave with our tail between our legs, as it were, because it just crashed. You know, we did our best.
Yeah.
We hung in there for quite a few months trying to.
Would you have liked to stay longer?
I would have. I enjoyed Alberta. I enjoyed the access to the mountains because don't forget I was born in the foothills of other mountains. So somehow it's in my bones. I like the physiography, the climate, etc. of that place. Don't not necessarily like the politics, but the physical attributes speak to me. So. Came back and had a daughter by then, 3 years old. And I ended up finding work with do you know what a Crown Corporation is?
No.
A Crown Corporation is halfway between government and free enterprise business.
Okay.
So it is created by government and financed by government, but it operates at arm's length from the government.
Okay.
So, and generally speaking, these are created to fulfill a very specific function. So at this time, it was deemed that Ontario desperately needed a comprehensive hazardous waste management system, a full system to manage hazardous waste in this province. That the private sector operations were doing the easy things, and the more difficult, because they weren't going to deliver much in the way of profit, were being left untended to, was the argument. And so the government of Ontario created this Crown Corporation called the Ontario Waste Management Corporation, OWMC. And its job was to, on the one hand, find an appropriate location. So there was a whole siting program, very contentious and lengthy. And I think the most significant environmental assessments ever done in the province of Ontario were done for the OWMC. Okay. And I was part of that. Very exciting for me.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was to design, then build and operate these facilities. So this went on for well over 5 years, all of this work. It takes a long time. Huge amounts of money were spent. A lot of things were learned.
I can imagine a lot of hurdles if there's
Oh
been
yeah.
involved.
Man, my goodness. Especially with sighting, because the whole NIMBY thing comes up. Not in my backyard. People say, conceptually the idea is good, but this is the wrong place. It's too close to me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is a normal human reaction, by the way, very normal. Anyway, lots of challenges. Ultimately, the hearings had just started on sighting, and everything just kind of collapsed in on itself, because as this thing was building, the private sector could see that they were going to lose their livelihoods if they didn't step up. So that's kind of what they did. As this thing was being created, this OWMC mega facility, the private sector did start filling in a lot of the gaps that had previously not been filled in. And so the need kind of evaporated. The need for such a huge expenditure to be run by the government, it just became no longer tenable to have that opinion.
Yeah.
So the whole thing just stopped at that time. And I went to the private sector, waste management, because I had learned so much about waste management.
It must be very disheartening, though, like something you had been working.
Well, actually, I left about a year before it ended.
Okay.
Because for me, I had already decided that the need was no longer there. I believe. See, the thing about me, Sammy, is everything I've done, I've truly believed in, and that's what's allowed me to work hard and not feel the pain. Really,
So you're passionate about it.
I am passionate. Yeah, exactly. And the first 4 years of working for OWMC, I fully believed in its mission, and so I was passionate, and I worked really hard and at it, and I enjoyed the work. But at a certain point, it became clear to me that the need is no longer there. It was real. It's not there anymore. And very quickly, when my passion shut off, my enthusiasm for it withered, and I looked for other opportunities. So, yeah, I ended up joining the private sector that had been deemed the enemy because they weren't doing the job, right? And I spent the next 7 years in that business.
Okay.
So one thing leads to another quite often. I never had a plan, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, from what I'm hearing, it just seems like you had the next step sort of in front of you.
Yeah.
And then you just look to the next step after that.
Yeah.
But it's not like you just have it planned out and know
Exactly.
exactly what to do.
Exactly. And, that's one of the things that I've ended up advising my kids, for example. I have a daughter and a son. And
How old are they?
Well, okay, you're going to embarrass me. I don't know exactly. I think
Do you know which one's the eldest? Or?
Yeah. I think my daughter's like 43.
Okay.
And that would make my son about 38.
Okay. All right.
Thereabouts.
Give or take. All right. They won't be offended hearing this.
No, listen, it's not a surprise to them. They know that Dad doesn't remember those kinds of things, But anyway, sorry, what was it? I lost my
The plan. Like, that's what you tell your children, that, not to plan things out.
Yeah, no, it wasn't exactly that.
Is what I think you were going to say.
Yeah, I know I was talking about that, and I was going to go somewhere, and I apologize. I've completely...
No, I distracted you. I distracted you with a tricky question.
Yeah, how old are they? My God, what father? What a father! Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna. My dad would probably struggle with that one as well. Yeah. Okay, so if that comes back to you, feel free to.
I will jump in with it. Yeah.
So a lot of work in Calgary for 3 years, and back to Toronto, all within the field of
environmental management
work.
in one way. And that's the thing. So I started in regulatory, control things, Ministry of Environment. And the OWMC continues to be government. It's a crown corporation, but it's still, it's a government activity. Then I had 3 years of consulting when I was in the West. And then after my waste management, I went back to consulting for another 5 years or so. Did a lot of work overseas in mergers and acquisitions. I would do liability assessments and things for new operations to be brought into our company.
Because I was going to bring up Egypt.
Now, so that's a whole other phase.
Okay.
So
I'm jumping ahead.
and that's my last phase. So the last 25 years plus have been international development.
Okay.
So that's the different one. Where that work is totally different. Totally different because you're fulfilling, well, at least initially. See, I was a contractor for SZUDY, the Canadian International Development Agency.
Okay.
So SZUDY has agreements with various developing countries to provide assistance, and they do that through broad programs, but the execution of the programs, they hire contractors, third parties. So that's how I got into that. And for the first 5 years or so, I was a contractor, more than 5 years, maybe 7. I was working on various projects. So SZUDY was the funder, and I was the executor of those projects on the ground. Eventually, when climate change, when the Kyoto Protocol was ratified, I could see that this was going to be big and real.
What did the Kyoto Protocol entail?
The Kyoto Protocol was the agreement to reduce greenhouse gases. The emission of greenhouse gases to try to limit the global warming that we knew we were already in more than 20 years ago, more than 25 years ago. Anyway, so the nations of the world got together and decided that there needs to be global effort to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases, essentially carbon dioxide, but others as well. If we wanted to forestall a too rapid warming of our atmosphere, which was going to damage an awful lot of things, not to mention our ability to survive as a species, ultimately.
Which is important.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. One of the things I do say often is based on the last 25 years with respect to this issue, humanity as a species doesn't deserve to survive. We're just too stupid and greedy, because we are hurtling to our doom. And in my darkest moments, I believe that, I say it sometimes without fully believing it because I am optimistic that we can still work our way through, if only.
Well, you have to be, I think.
Yeah, well, that's right. Otherwise, you give up. You lie down. So, international development work, very, very different. And I did various projects there. Most of the work was in Egypt. I did a very important project in Jordan. Enjoyed that, and some
he's from Jordan.
Over-the-top interesting work in Afghanistan, in Kabul. Okay. Woohoo! So the last 25 plus years of my professional career have been in international development. So,
what have you learned from those? Just being in countries. I mean, I suppose you were used to being in places that were unfamiliar to you, but that's at a different age. And then you go to Egypt, you go to Jordan, you go to Afghanistan, and you meet all these new people with different cultures. What did you take away from that? That's a heavy question. But.
It is. A lot. One of the things, by the way, that was one of the things I learned earlier on in the system is that the arrogance of the West has created an awful lot of white elephants with respect to international development. When the thrust is, well, we come from a developed context, we know how to do this stuff, we're going to show you,
Arrogance.
do for you, and you're going to buy the equipment from us, because, and it's set up and tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars are spent doing all kinds of stuff. The project is over, and those people go back to their home countries, and it's not just, it's all Western countries have been guilty of this. And the thing fails in no time at all because you don't have enough people that know how to operate, how to maintain the spare parts, getting them from where this first came from, too bloody expensive for that place, so it's wasteful. So the first thing I learned is you gotta really understand where you are. What is this reality? Because if it's going to be a workable, sustainable solution, it has to fit within that context.
Right.
It has to make sense to those people, and it has to be viable physically. You have to be able to afford the maintenance and the parts that you need, Otherwise, find a different solution, And the intent is to ratchet things up a bit on the sort of economic ladder, but it can only be a little for it to be sustainable.
Yeah, for it to last.
So that was a really important thing. And
for the adaptability and knowing
so
your surroundings.
To get there, you have to learn to listen. You have to learn to hear and see from the host environment. You have to stop this notion that you start with that I'm the visiting expert.
Yeah.
I know this stuff. Listen to me. But that's generally how we all start when we start this kind of work. I mean, you're all fired up. You've got all these ideas. You know how waste management systems work. I've been in it for so many years. And then you get there, and eventually, if you're lucky, it does dawn on you that, okay, buddy, cool the jets. You have to reimagine.
Right.
You have to see what's here. You have to hear how the folks here view these things, because it's got to be theirs. You're leaving. You're not going to be here forever. That is, that's something that for some visiting experts, for some it's really hard to learn. Yeah. I think it was easier for me because I've been a learner and an adjuster my whole life. Yeah. I came from a different reality, so... for my parents, I was translating into Polish all the time. So the idea of translation, it wasn't foreign to me.
You also get an awareness that not everybody works in the same ways.
Yeah.
And not everybody lives in the same ways.
I remember when we got derailed there, and I'd forgotten what I told my kids.
Yes.
What I've said to them right from the very beginning is make a decision about what you like to do. Don't think of it as the job you want, but what you like to do. Yeah. Because if you can figure that out, you will come to see that what you do fits into so many different career paths. So you don't have to lock in on labels. Yeah. But
that was good.
Understand what you want to do, what brings you enjoyment.
That was going
kind
to
of work?
That was going to be my next question to you, because obviously you've taken things very much step by step. What would, like, I was going to ask what your advice would be to people trying to, you know, my age, trying to get into a certain career or get into a certain field. And
that's it.
That's very useful.
That is really it. And it's really to understand what kind of thing you like doing, not by job title or position or even organization, but generally speaking, what fuels you, what is a passion for you, and because you get good at that. If you enjoy it, you get really good at it, and all kinds of doors open. So that's kind of one thing. The other thing is that give yourself permission to make mistakes. Mistakes are where you learn a ton.
Yeah.
And very few decisions we make in life are irrevocable. There are some, but very few. So, I mean, when I think back as I went through, I was probably more fearful than I should have been of consequence. And what I see in the rearview mirror is that, be outrageously brave. You know, is no, seriously, because especially these days are very different than my time. These days, people have to be very nimble. You have to turn on a dime and go in a different direction.
Yeah, things change very quickly.
So quickly. That's one of the biggest changes from when I was growing up, and even the way work is done now. I mean, in retrospect, I was so lucky because I could focus on my skill set, my passion within an organization, and financial aspects of that. I had finance people. I had IT people. I had all kinds of clerical staff.
Yeah.
So I could afford to focus on my primary thing, and I had all this great support around me. I need a PowerPoint presentation, for example. You do know what a PowerPoint presentation. Yeah. Okay. Hey, listen. So much has changed. Could be called different now. Anyway, so I could say, Linda, could you set this up for me? Like, I didn't have to know how to do it.
Yeah.
These days, what I see is you have to be a jack of all trades. Yeah. It's not enough for you to do your primary thing. You've got to have a better sense of costs and IT stuff and production stuff, all kinds of stuff that I didn't have to. So now, going forward, you have to be more self-sustaining, and that means be flexible. That means, and that's where I go back to. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yes.
Don't worry about that, because you're going to have to be moving in ways I never had to worry about. I could look down the line and say, I'm going to be here for the next 5 years doing this thing because that's how long it takes to get to the end of this. And I have an entire infrastructure that I'm part of. Yeah. So, there is that continuity. I don't see that much for your generation. Yeah. So, adaptable, flexible, quick moving. And I go back to be audaciously brave, because you don't want to hesitate. And so what if it's the wrong thing? You turn it around.
Yeah. I think also a benefit to that is that people more than ever have a very short attention span, and I think a lot of people are afraid of the public consequences if you do fail at something or if something does go wrong.
Yeah.
But I think it's very easy to forget that people forget so quickly. So, like within a week,
Yeah.
they'll have moved on to something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of my big worries, by the way.
Attention span.
Yeah. What I
But
see.
my question I had a question for you though is going to be
Sure.
what was like what is one thing that you could see as a threat for my generation? Obviously, the environmental.
The social media. Honestly, more and more, I think the negative elements of that are outweighing the positive. I honestly do. And I'm talking about social media as those platforms and not the computer or the internet
Sure.
as
Yeah.
such.
Yeah.
But it is such a time waster, and it feeds you, and the algorithms are more and more designed to feed you in very specific ways. And, look, sorry, these days, I know my mother's telephone number and I know my own, and that's it. Everything else is in the phone, right? I rely on this. When I was growing up, I knew in my head 25 phone numbers, because I would call them on the rotary dial, etc., all of that. But the point is that as technology is racing forward, our brains are
Less
challenged in the right ways, and there is such a dump of stimuli, and that's the algorithms want that. They want your eyeballs on that. So now it's a fact is thrown at you, fact in quotation marks, because God knows whether it's true or not. And before you have time to digest, so I go back to the conversation I've had with my kids a lot, like there's a fact, but you need to understand why it's like that and how is it and why is it like that.
Yeah.
So you bring in information, you convert it to knowledge by examining not just what is it, but why is it that way? How does it work that way? And then to move from knowledge to wisdom, you need to step back and say, okay, so what? What is the significance of that?
Yeah.
In today's environment, you're not given that time. You are bombarded with so-called facts, and it's like a drug. It's constantly being fed to you. Your
And
brain,
that you actually don't remember any of them.
Well, you can't.
No.
You can't, because the next hour's stimuli washes away the previous hours, and just like we lose the capacity to remember phone numbers, and so how many people in the city? It kills me, by the way. How many people I've driven with, and we say, well, we're going to X and Y, so they plug it into the Waze,
maps.
for example, and they listen to the instruction and they follow the instruction, and I go, oh my God. Do you know how the city is laid out? Do you know which streets intersect with what? I mean, do you know where you are? More and more, I mean, these are just glib observations, but it's indicative of the challenges.
Well, I think here still we're lucky. My coordination isn't great. Like without my phone, I'd be in a bit of trouble. But here we're lucky enough where it's horizontals and verticals. So if you get lost, it's quite simple to figure out where you are.
Yeah.
If you're in like Europe or something like that, then it becomes a lot trickier. It becomes a lot trickier.
You see, and that one actually speaks to me, because I paid for my university in the first 2 years by driving taxi in Toronto. So I was a cab driver.
Yeah.
So I did get to know the city exceptionally well.
Well, I was gonna, because it's not. I don't often get to talk to someone who's been in Toronto for who's raised pretty much in Toronto and still lives there. How has the city changed?
Scale. It's just
expanded.
Yeah. It is so large and busy. I mean, the the condo towers along the lake, along the waterfront, are staggering, just staggering. I mean, I've said this to others driving along the raised portion of the Gardner, for example. Somebody showed me a picture of any of those shots and asked me, "Do you know what city this is?" I wouldn't. With the exception of one or two, when there's something very unique that I'm catching in there, I couldn't tell you that that's Toronto. It's no longer
To that extent?
recognizable for me. Yeah. But anyway, going back to this thing, the taking time to think. This is what I worry about, is the
To be bored.
faster pace is knocking that off. And that's the wisdom. So, it's like I say, there's information, then there's knowledge based on that information, if you've asked some questions, and then there is wisdom, the so what of it all, if you take the time to consider what is the point of that. What is the significance to me, to my life, to life in general of that? That whole thing takes time. It is a process. You need the time, and the faster pace of absolutely everything is squeezing that out, and we become less thinking beings and simply reactive beings. And there's a huge danger to that, in my opinion. Huge danger.
And,
Okay, have I depressed you enough?
No, well, see, this is the question that I've also asked the last guests, and to sort of leave it on a hopeful note, is what is one thing that you think my generation has to look forward to, or has to be hopeful about? That's why I started with the threaten.
Well, so there is a great silver lining with the challenge of less structure. You see, I grew up where you're working within large structures, very unwieldy structures. They give you support and give you a home and all of that, but they're there and they will outlast you.
Yeah.
The evolution of work, where people are going to be less part of a structure, this whole digital economy, this notion that you can be anywhere and it's what you bring into the equation for a brief time, means that genius can come forth a lot more readily than it does within the constraints of a pre-existing structure.
Yeah.
There's the hope. The hope that that young folk who now can be exposed to more of the world through the internet, etc., will be able to be more random, if you will,
Yeah, less boxed in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where exciting changes are born, really. So when I look at people like you, like my kids, that's what I see as the future, because just staying on the track that we're on, I can see the end, and there's a hell of a lot of fire. I won't say brimstone, but we're burning up. Yeah. Going back to climate change, my God, it's...
yeah, it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary, for sure.
So, I think that there is more freedom. It's unsettling, I'm sure. It's got to be for you guys, because you are almost needing to be independent in a lot of ways that I did not need to be as somebody working. I was always part of a group, and I loved teams and etc. For example, but that teamwork thing is in the cards for you guys because independent, but working in ad hoc teams is what I see happening more and more. And in that sort of context, all kinds of new wacky ideas can come up, and some of them will be
stick.
helpful.
Yeah.
Some of them will be helpful. You know,
Yes.
so that's the biggest thing that gives me hope. Is you have those virtual teams that are going to be popping up here and there. A lot of sparks, a lot of good stuff is possible, and I just hope that a lot of it gets picked up, put into action.
I think that's a happy note to leave it on, to conclude the episode. Unless there's anything else that you want to bring up, we have time.
Well, there are a few things.
Yeah, please.
And it is one of the things that I was thinking about earlier and then lost it, and that is within organizations. And I've had this discussion with my kids, a number of times. Within organizations, it is very easy to not appreciate what's really going on. Sometimes there'll be a change made, and there's an impact on you within that organization. I remember hearing this said to me when I first joined the executive group at the company that I was in. A fellow took me aside, and we were talking about some change that somebody else has done. And I said, God damn it, why is he out to get me? Because now this is going to make my life. And he looked at me and he said, here's something I've been told a long time ago. I'll pass it on to you. It's a comment. It says, don't necessarily attribute to malice that which can be explained by stupidity. And so he explained what that means is in larger structures, a lot of times shit happens and it has a negative impact on you, but it's kind of arrogant for you to think that that person did it with you in mind. Yeah. You're irrelevant. There's a reason why they did it. Often the reason's stupid. Net, it isn't for that person, But the point is, hardly anything is about you. If you want to survive in these different environments,
not take it personally,
and understand that very little is really about you. Don't expect it to be about you. It's about them. Whatever anyone is doing, they're generally doing it with themselves in mind, not you. So that's kind of one thing that has stood me in good stead, because it allowed me not to be as frustrated and simply to deal mechanically with stuff that changes in a negative way for me, and be able to get through that, because I know it's not about me. And another thing, Sammy, that I would say we need a lot more of, and that is making space for others. Right. Being kind. Not long ago, I attended a one-man comedy show here in downtown Toronto. Okay. The title was, if I can remember correctly, "God is a Scottish drag queen." That was the title of the thing.
All right.
And most of his show was hilariously funny. And there was the segment he was talking about, isn't it time to update the 10 Commandments? That they were written so long ago and everything else changes. We change all kinds of things. Why not there? Why 10? It was 50. It was distilled down to 10. Can we not? Anyway, this was his shtick. He was doing this thing, and he said, I can actually distill the 10 Commandments down to just one, and that is, don't be a douche.
Yeah. Fair enough.
you know, and I laughed my head off at the joke, but when I thought about it, that's kind of the way I've tried to live
Right.
my entire life, is never do anything at the expense of somebody else. You know, if it has to be, you're either not seeing another option or you really shouldn't be doing it. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's
Yeah.
like, you know, be respectful, make space for other people. We're always better when we have different viewpoints coming in. I've said earlier that most of my work has been within teams. I love
Yeah.
working within teams because what comes out of that is greater than the sum of its parts. It really is. Whatever successes I've achieved in my working life, I mean, they really are because of inputs from a lot of people.
And I think also like that, but also you start work like if you're working on a project alone, you're sort of doing it for yourself. But when you're working on a project as a team, then you sort of need to get something done to the best of your ability to also like make sure they have what they need from
Exactly.
it. And it's not just for yourself, it
Exactly.
becomes a lot bigger.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So this idea of not only making space, but actually helping. See, ultimately, what I've come to learn is the best manager or leader is the one that understands that their contribution is nominal relative to the other inputs. That your job really ought to be checking on what each of your team members needs to be the best that they can be, to give the best input, the best contribution. That's really your job, the care and feeding of the team.
Right.
That's a leader, you know. That's how you get a tremendous amount. And for that, it means not only making space for others, but nurturing them and being happy for their success. Like that's, and it really isn't pie in the sky. I mean, like I said, I've worked in so many different environments, right? Regulatory and commercial,
Yeah.
consulting, industrial. It works across the board. It works across the board. This notion of empowering and motivating and supporting, people around you. That's how you make a difference. That is the key difference, as opposed to what you specifically bring to the table as knowledge, as facts. Seriously, it's.
No, it's very useful.
Yeah, well, it's worked for me, and it is what I've tried to pass on to my kids, and
Do they have kids themselves?
my daughter does.
Okay.
2.
Nice.
My son hopes to in the near future. He's just recently married, and
Congratulations.
yeah. They're very multinational. So here I am in Toronto, actually Mississauga, but close enough. My daughter lives in London. My son in Paris.
London, UK?
No,
Ontario. Okay. Sorry.
and Paris, Ontario.
Oh, Paris, Ontario as well?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But very multinational. Yeah.
I didn't even realize there was a Paris, Ontario, I'll be honest.
There is on the outskirts of Brampton, so about halfway between Toronto and London. So it's.
Usually when you say those two in one sentence.
I know. Isn't it great?
I think they knew what they were doing there.
That's yeah. So that's probably been my biggest achievement is giving them a good start in life. I've been, because of the work I did, I traveled a great deal on business. I was able to expose them to other countries and other cultures. They both spent a fair bit of time in Egypt with me, and as well as other European cities. And that has stood them in great stead. They have seen things that they otherwise wouldn't. And you always come back and you appreciate where you are in a very different way.
Yeah.
When you've seen how it could be.
For sure.
You know, I mean, I often think back if my parents hadn't made the move to Canada in '57, I would have been raised in that village. There is a incredibly high probability that I would not have gone to high school, never mind, and impossible for university. My life would have been dramatically different. You know, so that notion of there, but for the grace of God is
The recognition. Yeah.
really, really important. And that's why I think one of the best things you can do is get exposure to you know, other parts of the world, and either physically by traveling or by seeking people out that come from other places and coming to appreciate where they're coming from. You know, that in itself is incredibly helpful. This notion of becoming wiser by knowing more. You know, not facts, but you know, people.
Keeping that curiosity.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Let's wrap it there.
Okay.
Yes.